10.3 Example 3. In this video, we're going to talk about how to graph polar functions using technology or our calculator. So there is other software you can use such as GeoGebra and Desmos, but for now, I want to show you how to use your calculator because I know you're allowed to use your calculator on the AP test. So we're going to find an appropriate graphing window and produce the polar curve provided. So the first graph we're going to start with is r equals sine of 6 theta. So when determining a window that we're going to use, we want to look at what the function is. So I know here we have sine. And I know sine of theta is always less than 1. So that means that my window is probably going to be good being between -1 and 1. And if I need to zoom out, I zoom out, not that big of a deal. So let's go ahead and graph it. So the first thing you're going to want to go ahead and do is make sure your calculator is in the correct mode. So we click on mode. We notice that we're in radians. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We notice that we need to be in polar. So we go down and to the side to get to polar. Push enter. Now I'm in polar. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do y equals, and it's going to ask for the function. So I hit sine. And then I'm going to want 6 theta. So 6 and theta you get by pushing X. Nope, it looks like I have an extra parentheses, but no big deal. Then I'm going to hit window. So I go from 0, this is 2 pi. So if you don't believe me, it's 2 pi. And when you do radians, it's nice to have a step of like 0.1. It's usually a good step size. And then we're going to go ahead and make our min. I said -1, so I'm going to go a little bit bigger, -1.5. For max, I'm going to do 1.5. And then for scale, I like to leave this at 1. Min, -1.5. And max, 1.5. Then I go ahead and I push graph. And it looks kind of weird. A little pointy, but that's okay. The curve is supposed to be nice and smooth. It traced out really, really fast. So let me try changing the step to 0.01. As you can see, it traces out slower, and because of that, you get a better detailed graph, but it still traced out really fast. So I'm going to go even smaller. Maybe 0.001. And now you can see it graphing out slower. So we might want to go down so that way it makes nice, smooth curves. And then you just want to make sure you go ahead and draw that in your notes. If you wanted to do it in degrees, you definitely can. So we're going to go to degrees. But in our window, we're going to need to make our max 360. Because now we're in degrees. We probably don't want this at 0.001. I'm just going to drop this down to a 1 and push graph. And it traced it out pretty quick, so you can go slower if you want. And that's it. So let's go ahead and try another one. For this next one, we're going to graph 1 minus 2 cosine theta. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up my calculator. And I'm going to type it in. 1 minus 2 cosine theta. Now I'm going to go ahead and push graph. And I can see that I'm missing a chunk of the graph. So what I like to do is I just hit zoom. And if you push 0, it's going to try to fit it to your window. Now I don't like this because it looks kind of weird because it's just barely fitting. So what I do is I go to window and it looks like it's -3, so I'm going to go to -4. It looks like its max is 0, so I'm going to go to 1. I like to push it just a little bit past, so maybe -2 and 2. And then I go ahead and I push graph. And that's going to make it just fit a little nicer. And again, I had it in degrees. If you want it in radians, you just use 0 to 2 pi. And you make your step much, much smaller. Alright, let's do another one. So now we're going to graph 4 sine of theta. So we're going to want to go ahead and graph 4 sine of theta. So in our calculator, it's 4 sine of theta. And I push graph. I can see it didn't even fit, so I go zoom 0. And it's going to make it kind of fit. So I'm going to go to my window, and I'm just going to make everything just a little bigger. And you could zoom out, but in my experience, it zooms it out too much. And there we go. So the shape is supposed to be a circle, but because the distance this way is less than this way on my screen, it doesn't look like a circle. You can fix that by simply changing the window. I'm going to make my x's go a little further. -4 to 4. And there we go. Now we have our circle. Because now this distance is the same as this distance here.